My name is Darius Nibot. I'm pleased to be here today to present on behalf of my team. Alongside me is Robert Pillay, Caitlin Clausen, Izwe Hadebe, and Cameron So. We'll be sharing the insights into various aspects of our topic. Our presentation is for a module on the street law, which is informing the people of the law that affects them on a daily basis, along with their rights, but in a way that they can easily understand. The focus is on community engagement and the practical implications of the law. Our topic is driving under the influence of prohibited substances, along with the newly decriminalized marijuana bill in South Africa. The focus of our topic is for you to understand and to grasp the legal consequences of driving under the influence and the consequences that flow from it. For an overview of our presentation, we will be highlighting the importance of understanding the consequences of driving under the influence with a focus of marijuana. We will be providing you with an introduction into the background of DUI laws and the current legal framework. And we will also be doing a case study on the Prince case of 2018 and how that ruling raises questions of driving under the influence in South Africa. The focus is on the blood alcohol limits, where the marijuana can be tested at roadblocks, and what the ruling means for drivers that smoke marijuana. And we will also be doing a myth versus fact interactive quiz at the end of our statement, at the end of our presentation, but we will discuss that closer to the time, and there is prizes to be won. And if you have any questions, I do ask you to keep that for the end of our presentation. But other than that, I hope we have an engaging lesson. I now hand over to Roman Berlin.
Good day, class. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Roman, and I'll be giving you a brief overview on the consequences of driving under marijuana and alcohol in South Africa. So in South Africa, you can be charged for driving charged with drunk driving or driving recklessly if you drink while driving or use any drug that impairs your ability to operate a motor vehicle safely. You can be charged if the amount of alcohol in your blood is over the legal limit. Other charges may be imposed, such as reckless driving as well. So the laws even apply if you are just sitting in the driver's seat with the engine on, not necessarily driving. You can still be charged with an offense. So drugs like cannabis, mandrax, ecstasy, cocaine are illegal to use while driving, as they impair your ability to operate a motor vehicle safely. So the legal alcohol limits for alcohol for regular drivers is 0.05 grams of alcohol per 100 milliliters. And for your professional drivers, it's far stricter. So your professional drivers are your Uber drivers, your taxi drivers, people that take in charge of a lot of people's lives while driving. They can't go more than 0.02 grams per 100 milliliters of blood. So your breath test for regular drivers is 0.24 milligrams of alcohol per 1,000 milliliters of breath, and for professional drivers, at 0.10 milligrams per 1,000 milliliters of breath. It is illegal to drive if you use cannabis or any drug that affects your ability while driving, even if you use it in a legally respected area, be it your home. Whether you go and drive on the road now will be considered an offense. So what are the consequences? Police officers can stop you at checkpoints if they suspect that you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. A fine of 120,000 may be imposed up to 120,000, jail time of 3 years, and suspension of your driver's license. So having a criminal record for DUI can impact your job applicability very bad, and be the worst case scenario that accidents is that you can injure someone on the road or potentially kill your loved ones or someone else. So it is illegal to use cannabis in your car while on a public road, and that can incur a fine up to 2,000. It's also illegal to use cannabis in public areas near cars. So if you drive after using cannabis or the amount of THC in your blood is high, you can be charged for reckless driving. Police are entitled to stop you if they suspect cannabis and submit you to a blood test. If you are found guilty, your driver's license can be suspended, jail time also can be imposed, and you may have a fine. That concludes my portion of the presentation. I would like to hand over to Caitlin, who will be doing my part.
Good day, everyone. Good day, class. So, while keeping in mind what my colleague Roman has already mentioned in his part or in the introduction of his presentation, I would now like to introduce the current legal framework pertaining DUIs, or better known as driving under the influence. I will specifically delving into the alcohol consumption or the alcohol concentration on the legal legislation opposed to marijuana. As we all know, there's a wide legislation on DUI specifically, but I will try to limit my presentation as much as I can, as time is obviously restricted. So with regard to the National Road Traffic Act of 93 of 1996, it defines a DUI, or driving under the influence, as driving under the influence of intoxicating liquor or drugs that obviously has a narcotic effect, or exceeding the legal limit, as my colleague Roman already mentioned, which is for ordinary drivers 0.05 grams per 100 liter, and for our professional drivers, as already mentioned, it's 0.02 grams per milliliter. It also involves no persons being allowed or permitted to drive or being behind the wheel of the driver's seat while under the influence, again, with a running engine, obviously. So, regarding the legal processes and legal consequences of DUIs, there are a number of factors that the court considers when pertaining DUIs and DUI cases. So, the first legal process I would like to mention is the fact that you will obviously be arrested, as my colleague already mentioned. According to Section 40, subsection 1 of the CPA, or better known as the Criminal Procedure Act, it allows police officials to arrest and it allows officials to arrest and formally charge accused persons of DUIs for contravening the CPA. Secondly, upon arrest of the accused, they will be detained by the police official, and this is according to Section 50 of the CPA. So regarding the breathalyzer test, as my colleague already mentioned, should the police official, should he have you take a breathalyzer test and the test appears to be positive, I would like to also mention the fact that any accused will always, regardless of the criminal charge, all criminal cases, as you already know, or should know, you will always be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So, again, I'm not encouraging anything. That's just by law. And so, again, depending on the circumstances of the various cases pertaining to DUIs, sentencing can vary from imprisonment that could be up to 3 years, or fines that could be a minimum of 2,000 rand. It could obviously increase, again, depending on the circumstances and the case in particular. And then lastly, your fine could, your driver's license can be and will be suspended should you be charged with a DUI. While we're still on the case of the CPA, there are only certain persons who are allowed and permitted to draw blood from the accused. So, I think most of us should know that police officials can't draw blood, obviously. So Section 65 of the CPA provides that an accused person cannot refuse the permission of the blood being drawn or the blood specimen being drawn or to be taken. And furthermore, Section 37, subsection 2 of the CPA furthermore provides that with regards to the drawing of blood specimens, only a certain number of people can do so, which would include medical officers of a prison, district surgeons, your medical practitioners, as well as registered nurses if it is requested by our police officials, okay? Because hence why they cannot draw blood from any accused person. So the blood sample, again, it has to be taken within 2 hours upon the arrest of the accused person. However, if the NPA, which is also better known as the National Prosecuting Authority, if they do, they may not proceed to press charges should the drawing of the blood have exceeded the 2-hour mark. Lastly, with regarding to the CPA and what the CPA entails, the accused would have to appear within 48 hours of being arrested or upon arrest. And however, again, this may be exceeded by public holidays or the weekend. So again, it will vary. Every case is dependent on so many factors that the court would have to consider. So my last topic for my part of this presentation is what the state has to prove regarding the definitional elements pertaining DUIs. So firstly, the state would have to prove that the evidence that the court has to consider, it has to be admissible and it has to be credible evidence. And the state would also have to prove that the accused was in fact over the legal limit, which my colleague and I have already mentioned, is 0.05 grams per 100 liter for our ordinary drivers, and for professional drivers is 0.02 grams per 100 liter. Furthermore, the evidence against an accused it may be given by a police official, hence the criminal charge that you see on the projector. This is an academic example that you might see, but usually it's just the accused personal details, etc. This will be provided with additional supporting documents, such as any evidence that may be used in court pertaining the case involved or in particular. So it could be evidence such as your testimonies, any other legal documents, etc. So with regards to again our witnesses, witness testimonies is considered as opinion evidence, and as we already know, opinion evidence is inadmissible unless, of course, it is backed up with again credible and admissible evidence. And lastly, I would also like to mention that there's something that is called an expungement. By the show of hands, who can tell me what that is? Okay.
It's like almost like making your record clean and making your
Exactly. It's the lawful process or the lawful procedure of your criminal record being completely cleared. So this can happen. However, I have to mention that this is not an automatic right that the accused would have. You would have to apply for it, and this application can only be done 10 years after. So just imagine the consequences you will be dealing with throughout this 10 years before you can have your criminal record eventually expunged. So lastly, I would just like to mention that I hope everyone enjoyed this part of the presentation, and I would like to give it over to my colleague Israel.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm splitting my presentation into 3 specific parts. The first part is me. I'm going to tell you about the effects that driving under cannabis or driving under the influence of cannabis will have on you, right? So now let's talk about this as it goes. Firstly, you have a slower reaction time when driving. And it's important to know that when you're driving, you have to be on top game. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be able to know what happens. Because when you're driving, that's not your life in your hands. It's the life of your fellow passengers and anyone else on the road. And who wants to have a dead body on their hands? Not me, definitely. Secondly, when driving under the influence of cannabis will affect your judgment. Like I said earlier, driving requires quick reaction thinking, and if your judgment is impaired, your driving is impaired. Impaired driving means you're at a higher risk of causing deaths or danger on the road, not to yourself, but to everyone else. Now, when you take cannabis and drive, there is a reduction in your motor coordination. So now imagine going on a steep hill and not knowing what you're doing. So like, no, you have to be able to have the right coordination. You have to know, okay, I'm turning left on the steering wheel, I'm going left. Don't drive like you're a learner driver. Don't do that. Now, I'm going to tell you another fact here. This is going to be dealing with the measuring impairment for alcohol and the difference between that and cannabis. So now everyone knows your standard procedure when it comes to how they measure alcohol level. They'll tell you to the side and be like, breathe in this. You breathe, you're good to go. You don't do any bribes because you're a good citizen, you know what I mean? Thanks so much. Now, here's the problem. When it comes to doing this with THC levels, they do not correlate with the impairment. What this means is ultimately you can't tell how much cannabis you've had on what level there is. There's no legislation. Secondly, weed affects people differently. Like, let's be honest. You know how one drink of alcohol you'll be fine? Weed is different. You could have one puff. Not me. I don't do that stuff. You could have one puff and literally be fine. Someone else could have one puff and will cry and want to see their mom and talk to the wall. Third of all, we need to talk about this. Field tests are less reliable. What I mean by this is, think about having, this is all alleged by the way, think about allegedly having an edible and then having a joint, right? You have an edible, how can you tell that you've had an edible? How can you tell the difference between an edible and a joint? They both affect you the same way, it's just the time that it takes is different. You see what I mean? There's differences. Fourthly, it's also important to know that there's no standardized testing. There's no standardized testing. What I mean by this is, like I mentioned earlier, alcohol, you have your breathalyzer. Cannabis, what are you going to do? Look me in the eyes? Like I said, it affects people differently. It affects people differently. Someone could have a puff, be fine. Someone else could have a puff and look like that picture of Lisa Simpson. Now, there's no sobriety test for weed. When I mean there's no sobriety test for weed, a couple pull you over, you've all seen those movie things where they say take a step here or whatever. What are you going to do for cannabis? There's no standardized testing. Now I'm going to tell you the impact of having a criminal charge regarding a DUI as a law student. First of all, you could be criminally charged or you could have a conviction. Now this is massive. Imagine having a criminal charge as a law student. You've just almost done it. You're about to get that job. No, you don't want that. Character and judgment are questioned. Now, just please, are you telling me, be honest, are you genuinely going to look at someone and say their character, their judgment is right if you have been pulled over for driving under cannabis? If you say yes, find out. Now we're going to go further. Now here comes the big one. Employment. Employment. You have to realize your employers, the people that will hire you, will do background checks on you. So now imagine you have the perfect record, 90s.
Laws and limits are in place for marijuana users who drive. So as we heard by everyone, there's laws and limits that exist for driving under the influence of alcohol. However, tetrahydrocannabinol, does anyone know what that is? Oh, you guys are clear for this? Okay, yes. You guys got it? Yes. Tetrahydrocannabinol, very big word, is the principal psychoactive element of marijuana. It stays in the system longer than what alcohol does. So this now creates difficulty in establishing laws and limits with regards to testing for intoxication and how to test for driving under the influence. So with regards to that, how can you test for drivers for marijuana? Companies such as Alcosafe, who provide testing equipment for driving under the influence, have said that there is a need for regulations, limits, and testing equipment for marijuana. They have said that in theory, any person caught with traces of marijuana in their system while driving can be arrested or prosecuted. As I've said now, marijuana can stay in a person's system for hours to days after use. This means that even though you're driving and you use marijuana a couple of days ago, you're not necessarily intoxicated, but there's still traces left in your system. Currently, however, there is no limit to establish how much THC needs to be present in your system in order to be classified as intoxicating. Again now, so what would happen now at a roadblock? So due to the lack of testing, drivers being tested for prohibited substances at roadblocks is minimal. This means that drivers who have indulged in substances such as marijuana are less concerned than drivers who have now practiced with alcohol. I would like to make note to you guys. If you have now taken marijuana and a police officer does stop, THC can be detected in blood tests, urine tests, and saliva tests. The latter producing results in 3 to 5 minutes. So, given all of this, what does this mean for marijuana users who drive? The legislation of marijuana would mean that there would be an increase in active users who drive a vehicle while under the influence. Regulations need to be put in place, as there is little we as law students and also future law practitioners can do and law enforcement currently can do in order to stop these people to stop marijuana users from taking the road. I want to conclude my part by saying, I want to encourage you guys, taking this degree is a choice. And you guys also make a choice to practice in these prohibited substances. So, taking these prohibited substances, it's a big decision, and there's also a big decision for your future. So, practicing in this degree, it's all about choice. And there's a big choice about taking this prohibited substance and also getting a car. You heard by Liz what? It has a big impact on your career going forward. I just want to leave you with that. Stay off. Now, I want to encourage you guys to participate in a group activity. This group activity is known as fact versus myth. Okay. What my colleagues and I will do now, we will present two statements to you guys, either being fact or myth. You guys, once we present our statement, will then raise your hand, either it being fact or it being myth. We will then explain to you why it is either or. I do want to give you guys a disclaimer. We only did research to a certain amount on these answers. So don't come with 10,000 questions, because we just only know the basics of this. So please be understanding of that. Okay, so now I'll hand over to Darius to start with the statement.
Okay, so my first statement, your blood alcohol concentration limit stops rising after you've had your last drink. Is it a myth or a fact?
Myth.
Okay, so raise your hand if you believe it is a myth.
Who says it's a fact?
It stops raising.
Stops rising after your last drink.
It's like it depends on what you add.
At the moment, it is a myth. Your blood alcohol concentration limit continues to rise for an additional 90 minutes after your last drink. Okay, so for my second statement, you can get charged for DUI for driving under the influence of CBD products.
Okay, who believes?
A car does not excuse impaired driving. Secondly, my second statement, are edibles safer because they don't impair your... Are edibles safer because they don't impair you as quickly as smoking marijuana? Would that be a fact or a myth? Allegedly. That is actually a fact, because edibles take longer to kick in. Edibles take the time that an edible takes to kick in is longer, opposed to weed, which is instantaneous, as smoking a joint. So an edible could take an hour, maybe 40 minutes, and you'd still be okay to drive to get to 10 minutes away from your destination. Whereas smoking a joint is now. Like Eva said, you'll be a learner driver on an hour. I'll pass it over to Caitlin to say,
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, jong, kijk hier. Lekker baasje hier.
Okay, so my first statement is that only alcohol-related UIs have legal consequences. If you believe it's a fact, show by the raise of hands. You believe that? Yeah, try to repeat the question. Only alcohol-related DUIs have legal consequences. Only alcohol-related. Who believes it's a myth? Clever clause. Okay. So my second statement is that drinking lots of water helps you pass a breathalyzer test. Who believes it's a fact? Who believes it's a myth? What? Everyone two-sided. It's a myth. It's a myth. Yeah. So I'm handing it over to my colleague Cameron to give the last.
Okay. First statement. Drinking coffee helps you sober up to drive. Is it a fact? Okay, who believes it's a fact? Who believes it's a myth? It is a myth. Coffee cannot reverse the effects of alcohol. It does not get rid of the alcohol from your system. Second statement. You can fool a breathalyzer by chewing gum or using breath pressers. Who believes it's a fact? Okay, who believes it's a myth? It is a myth. They can temporarily mask the smell of alcohol, but they have no impact on the test accuracy. Finally, I'll hand over to Lizwa to explain these last two
I'm
statements.
really nice for you guys. My first one, marijuana doesn't affect your driving. Is it a fact? Is it a myth? Fact, hands up. Myth. I like when my people listen. Thank you so much. That is when I talk. How does marijuana affect your driving? Your judgment, your motor coordination skills, as well as various other factors. My last one. Oh, this is a big one. Fact or myth, the statement is, after smoking cannabis, you can drive 4.5 hours later. After smoking cannabis, be it a joint, for instance, after smoking a joint, you can drive 4.5 hours later. Fact or myth? 4.5 hours. Fact or myth? Okay, listen, women like this. Raise your hand. After 4.5 hours, you can drive. Are you saying fact or myth? Those that say fact, hands up. Those that say myth, hands up. My fact people, clap for yourself. No, you guys are this. You guys are the best. First of all, no, listen, I'm going to elaborate. Let me elaborate. The effects, you will still have it in your classroom, yes, but the effects will have worn off 4.5 hours later. That's just been drive.
But just
Questions on this? Go right. No, Cameron. No,
I'm handing over now to Darius.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending our presentation, and I hope you learned a lot and it was informative. And for participating, everyone will get quizzes as well. And this concludes our presentation. And if you do have any questions, you can keep it for the end of our presentation. Thank you.